I want to bring in now Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, who is a professor of political communications at Sciences Po, as well as a senior partner at Iconic. Thanks for joining us. Just want to bounce off of what Antonia was saying about the sort of negotiations going on to form this government. It took 10 days, and there have been reports of some tensions between the new Prime Minister, François Bayrou, as well as the President, Emmanuel Macron. Can you tell us a little bit about why it was so complicated to come up with that government?
Well, first of all, François Bayrou did impose himself on Emmanuel Macron. It was a kind of a fight between the two. François Bayrou was not the first name that came when Emmanuel Macron decided to pick up a new prime minister. He was rather in favor of Sébastien Lecornu, his Minister for Defense. And François Bayrou did push hard on him in order to be nominated in the place of Sébastien Lecornu. François Bayrou is now the prime minister. He had the task to gather the left and the center-right and the president's party around him in order to form a new majority, a relative majority at least, a weak majority, but still a kind of a majority. He did fail to do that. Pretty quickly, the left did give up on him, and he was forced to do as he does now. It means that he is forced to make an alliance with the far right, with the Rassemblement National. It's unprecedented in the way that François Bayrou has conducted his life so far, his political life. François Bayrou never did any compromise with the far right so far, but he has to do it now, it seems.
Is there any sign that this government could not follow in the footsteps of the previous one? There's not much that has changed. Why would this one survive? Do you think there's any sort of room for maneuver going forward?
I think it's not in the hands of the government anymore. It's not in the hands of the president anymore. It's in the hands of the Rassemblement National. In the hands of the far right. The fact is the French are quite fed up with that situation. They are extremely worried. More than 80% of them say that they are worried about the political situation. There has been a common statement by all the trade unions and the heads of big corporations, a common thing that's unprecedented. And this statement was all about stability. We want stability in order not to lose jobs, in order not to lose our companies, not to lose our businesses. We want stability. And the pressure is heavy on all political parties and on the far right also, not to destabilize the government anymore. So that's the only chance that François Bayrou has. The only chance is that maybe the far right doesn't want to damage its relationship with the voters.
And what about the Leftwing Alliance? We saw, and you mentioned a little bit, this idea that at some point there was some sort of negotiation going on, maybe with the socialists, and in the end that didn't work out. What within the Leftwing Alliance maybe is sort of fracturing within the alliance, but what also prevented the socialists from actually joining François Bayrou's government?
The Socialist Party was not willing to do it from the start because they have an alliance with the far left, and they rely on that alliance to win the local elections in 2026, and they also rely on this alliance to maybe win the presidential election, not alone, but with others in 2027. And that is a huge deal. So what François Bayrou had to do was to promise something significant in order to fight that. And the significant thing was to, take out the retirement reform. And that's exactly what Emmanuel Macron doesn't want to do. The fact is we have a parliamentary regime with all the attributes of a parliamentary regime. It could work on it by itself. It could manage to reach an agreement. But we have a strong president. And the two of them, they don't work together anymore. So the question is, can we have a new prime minister that would succeed where Bayrou has failed, or do we have to ask the president to resign? And that's the only options we have, really.
And as you were speaking, we're seeing images of Xavier Bertrand, which is one of the names that we at least know is not going to be in this new cabinet, because he announced that he would not be joining a cabinet that was given, and I'm paraphrasing this, that was formed with the blessing of Marine Le Pen. How significant do you think it is that Xavier Bertrand, who is a center-right politician and whose name was floated around, came out and said himself that he was not going to be joining that government?
I think it's a huge deal because he was the first one to communicate. The government didn't announce itself yet, and we have this statement by one of the big players inside the right, the center right, that is saying that the new government will be exactly like the previous one, and that he doesn't want to form any alliance whatsoever with the far right. So it's like saying that this new government is like the old one, and that it's like a statement that this government won't last. And Xavier Bertrand is not on the left, so the signal he transmits is very well heard by the moderates inside the right and by the left, of course. So that's a huge deal, because Xavier Bertrand did that in order to kill this new government, so to speak, politically.
Now, we've talked a lot about the pressure that François Bayrou is going to be under with his new government to sort of survive longer than the previous government. But there is also Emmanuel Macron, the president, who is under a lot of pressure. If this government is named and they managed to hold on a little bit, how much pressure do you think Emmanuel Macron is under? I mean, we've heard him say over and over again he's not going anywhere, he will finish out his term. But do you think it can reach a point where it becomes untenable for him if this government doesn't last?
It very well may be that it's untenable, because we have two issues regarding Emmanuel Macron. One, the first one is that he's very unpopular, and there has been a series of articles published by Le Monde, which is the top daily newspaper that we have, very, very harsh on him, on his entourage. Saying that he was a little bit racist, he was a little bit misogynistic, a little bit homophobic, everything. So he's really like damaging his image as the time passes. And this episode is not in favor of him. Everyone is looking at him like he's responsible of that situation we are in. And the second factor that is against him is that he doesn't have anything to give to people anymore. He can still nominate the prime ministers, maybe some of the ministers, but he doesn't have any traction anymore. So it's like it's the end of an era, really, for him. It's a transition in our political system, which is kind of usual. We move from one government to the one president to the next this way. But it's a long, long period of time. We have still 2 years ahead of us.
Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, thank you very much for your analysis. We'll be coming back to you, but